several times. I tell him to stop being an idiot and he just laughs and says it's not loaded. Then the moron puts the barrel in his mouth and pop shoots a BB right through his tongue and into his uvula. I asked a temp at work to weigh a couple of lever arch files for postage. She came back and told me they were 65 kilograms. I asked if it were possible that it was 6.5 kilograms, but she insisted it wasn't. We argued about it for a good 5 minutes. It wasn't until I asked her how much she weighed, 59 kilograms, that it finally twigged that these two small folders couldn't possibly weigh more than her. One time my now ex-girlfriend was watching Maury Povich, one of those paternity test episodes with the classic "you are not the father" moment, and she turns to me and says, if we ever have a baby and I found out I'm not the mother, I'll kill you. Thankfully we didn't end up reproducing. This dude I worked with for 3 days. He was hired to be a fabricator, which is mostly cutting metal and welding stuff up. He claimed to have welded for many years, which we very quickly realized was an embellishment. Within his first 2 days he got into a heated verbal argument with a co-worker that advised him to not smoke cigarettes in the shop right next to multiple tanks of incredibly flammable gases. Told our manager to fuck off and let him do his job. Manager was trying to tell him what to do. Started a decently large fire because he didn't clean the floor underneath where he was welding, and then started yelling at people trying to tell him there's a fire. Smoking blunts on the job with no attempts to be discreet. By some miracle he managed to ruin a welder and 2 grinders beyond repair. And on top of all this he had this smug "I'm better than everyone else" attitude. He was promptly fired on the 3rd day and had the audacity to argue with management about it before storming out and flooring it out of the parking lot, running down the shop's mailbox. A month after all this, we were contacted by a customer about their dump truck that he had done the welding on. While on a job site emptying the contents of its dump bed, the welds broke and the entire dump bed fell off, causing damage to the truck, and another vehicle of theirs had to be upwards of 75k in damages. A friend of mine is a sweet guy but is overweight and balding and quite frankly not very attractive in the face. Well, one day he lets us know that he has met a girl and she might be the one. He's in his late 20s for reference. Well, I've met some of the jewels he's hooked up with in the past, so I wasn't expecting too much. Finally meet this girl and she's drop dead gorgeous and has a body that is incredible. I talked to her for a while and she's super friendly and outgoing. I'm stoked for my boy. He found the best he's ever gonna find. Anyway, the night progresses and the new couple starts talking about their plans for an upcoming trip to New Mexico, and she starts telling us how excited she is because she has never gone to another country before. I laughed a bit and realized she was dead serious. My friend just looked at me and shook his head, and I knew that he knew. She was dumb as a fucking rock, but she was his dumb fucking rock. He helped her get her passport. My sister-in-law once called me to ask how long is 90 days. I replied 3 months. She said thanks and hung up. Once called me and asked, do you have a calculator nearby? I'm applying for a bank job and need help. She had a smartphone but I knew not to bring that up. I got my phone out and told her I was ready to help. What's 20% of 200? My wife recently attempted to explain to her, unsuccessfully, what a round-trip flight was. She didn't understand why she had to pick 2 dates and times. I once gave her directions somewhere. It was something like get on Beltway 8, take the exit for HW59 South. She was like, what do I do when I get to the red light at X intersection? Go straight through it and take the on-ramp to Beltway 8. What do I do when I get to HW288? Pass it. What do I do when I get to HW59? Take the HW59 South exit and merge onto HW59. She got lost. My mum dash. We're driving across the country. She was getting upset at how much money we were spending on gas. We were driving a box truck that got like 10 miles per gallon. We're standing at a gas station and she's staring at the pump meter, writhing her hands. She turns to me and says, let's stop at gas stations more often so it doesn't cost as much. Okay, mom. She thinks that any website account that uses her email address as the username also uses the password to her email address. I've explained this no less than 25 times. She absolutely cannot understand why I buy 30 packs of toilet paper for $19. She pays $5 for 4 rolls because it's cheaper. I have stopped trying to explain this, but it keeps coming up. She's like ... upset with me about it. We hired a girl a couple of years ago. I told her where the manager's office was her first day. Second day, she asked me where the manager's office was, so I walked her to the door. Third day, she asks me where it is again. Our manager chewed out the girl who trained our new recruit for not teaching the job properly. The trainer pulled out her phone and showed the manager a picture of the girl wearing the uniform backwards and said, look at this. This is untrainable. New girl got fired about 3 weeks later for stealing the product because she thought she got it for free because she was an employee. Edit. Some of you are kind enough to give her the benefit of the doubt about not finding the office. Unfortunately, this office was located on the second floor, which consisted of a hallway with a single door and nothing else. It wasn't possible to get lost. Also, spelling. I live in southern Spain. I once met a girl from the US who was here on some kind of exchange program. When I asked her how did she like Spain so far, she said I'm loving it. I just don't know why the plane took so long to get here. I mean, we are just a bit below Mexico. I don't know if the flight was so long. Then I told her that we were in Europe. And she didn't believe me. Her reply was, Europe? It can't be. Everyone speaks Spanish, so we must be somewhere near Mexico for sure. She was in UNI. I still don't know how or why. LOL, how the fuck do you join an international exchange program without even knowing where you're going on the fucking map? Some people glide through life with a guardian angel preventing them from walking into traffic or some shit. A girl in an AP US history class laughed at me when I was talking about driving to Alaska from Oregon. She insisted Alaska was an island because of how it is separated out on maps like this. I don't know if she was the dumbest person I met overall, but it was certainly the dumbest thing someone insisted they were right about. Edit. I am happy this turned out to be educational. My ex-sister-in-law is hands down the dumbest person I've ever encountered. There's literally a plethora of fucking insanely stupid things she's said over the years, but I'll use the one that almost made me slap the taste out of her mouth. I had my first son back in 2001, and while I was pregnant she asked me if I was going to breastfeed, to which I replied that I was. She then asked even if it's a girl, and I said of course. She then proceeded to tell me that it's perfectly fine to breastfeed boys, but doing so with girls is creepy and could make the child a lesbian because they get the feel of a breast and will remember it and want that sexually. To say that I was stunned by her thought process is an understatement. I asked her what she thought people did before formula was invented, and she said cow's milk, and before bottles were invented it was a rag soaked in cow's milk. Side note, she had 3 daughters and wouldn't allow her husband to change their diapers or bathe them. I have legit encountered someone who claimed that NASA is fake. Not just the moon landing conspiracy stuff, but the entire organization. The buildings, the people, the rockets, everything is just CGI. And you can tell it is CGI because everything got so much better and improved as CGI grew closer to perfection in our current day. Blew my mind, especially because I lived on Melbourne Beach, Florida at the time, and I would sit on the sand behind my house and watch nearly every launch. I had been into some of the secure buildings, was friends with many NASA employees and contractors, had seen 2 shuttles in the vehicle assembly building as they were being refurbished. That place is huge. Watched a shuttle being moved on giant trails, a gigantic machine called the crawler at like 1 mile an hour to the launch pad, and so on. It was hard to imagine someone dumber. Really, I used to work with the nicest person I've ever met, but he was also the dumbest. Even though he had been there over a year, he couldn't do anything beside washing dishes without someone watching over him. He just could not figure out how to do anything on his own. Someone, usually me, would have to watch over every little thing he did to make sure he was doing it right. It would have been frustrating if he wasn't the nicest damn person on earth. He was always so happy to see you and did everything with a smile on his face. Luckily he could wash dishes like a fucking beast. I'm not exaggerating when I say he could wash dishes faster and cleaner than anyone I have ever met. That's the reason he would do other stuff, is because he washed dishes so damn fast we'd have to find other stuff for him to do. His wife was normal and all his kids were doctors or engineers. They were all crazy smart. What was kind of sad is that he knew he wasn't the smartest, but he was so damn nice. Years ago, I worked with a dude that made me genuinely wonder how he was still alive. He was not mentally ill, just stupid. Went to a party at his place and he announced burgers would be done in just a few minutes. He hadn't even started the grill. They made big, fat patties and I said, dude, you know these will take like 15 minutes minimum to cook, right? He said no problem. Last time they were all in the middle, so I learned a trick. He poked out the middle of the patty like a donut. He finished cooking them in like 3 minutes on the grill. I stuck with chips at work. We are talking about the economy, circa 2007 to 2008. And his solution was to have Congress pass a bill that nobody can raise their prices and then, dramatic pause, print more money. Dude was due. Oh lord, strap in, this is a ride. Let me tell you about Sarah. Now, Sarah was, and remains to be, one of the sweetest girls I've ever met. She's the sort of girl who would give you the shirt off her back, and not think twice. The sort of woman who would allow a stranger to stay in her home without question. She routinely gives money to charity and helps volunteer. She really is an angel. But Christ, is that girl dumb. When we were in high school, I mentioned that I one day wanted a small farm, something just big enough so I could raise chickens. I've always liked chickens, and you get fresh eggs too. She looked looked at me like I had 3 heads and said, if you want eggs, you need goats. This girl had made it to our senior year in high school without knowing where eggs came from. Our class was talking about a fellow student who had been diagnosed with a very serious illness. His girlfriend announced that he had realized something was wrong when he began urinating blood. Sarah piped up with, "Oh my god, he isn't sick. He just got his period. I've had mine for like 4 years." Sarah and I were once driving her car in the late 90s and her car battery died. We were only a mile away from my house, so I walked there, grabbed my car, and headed back. I parked and lifted her hood. She asked what I was doing. I told her I was going to connect the jumpers because her battery had died. This girl looked right at me and said, "My car runs on gas, not batteries." She legitimately had no idea that fish, the food, came from actual living fish. She decided she wasn't going to eat meat anymore. She would text me at all hours asking if the food she was about to eat was meat or not. I literally had to coach this woman, we were well out of high school at this point, on what meat products come from what animals. She still doesn't believe that tofu isn't from an animal. She thought France was in Canada. She thought all of South America was like North America, and one single country. She didn't believe that there was a North and South Pole. She asked me how planes ever got where they were going when the Earth was spinning so fast, and then followed up with, "Oh, I get it. They just go up and sit still until the place comes to them, right?" She thought hippos were made up, like unicorns.